Hello and welcome to Fellowship in Essential Oils. My name is Adam and joined by Liz. How are you today, Liz?
I'm really good, thanks, Adam. Great to see you.
And great to see you as well. And you got to choose the oil this week. We're looking at Scots pine today.
Yeah, or Scotch pine. Well, people call it Scotch pine sometimes, don't they? I like Scots pine better, but pine generally, there's not that much difference between the different varieties.
We're looking. I know one of my favorite aromaed pines is ponderosa pine. You know, I think we've talked about Swiss pine. I've seen marine pine, a whole bunch of them. But I guess you're really going to get that high in alpha pinene and beta pinene kind of chemistry from your pine essential oils.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah,
which all have those great virtues.
Yeah, and so while they do have obviously physical properties and good physical properties, I think the most beautiful thing about the pine oils is how they transport you into a forest and how they take you into that, like, I'm just going to let life go and relax a little bit. I think that is the charm of them.
Very much so. And I think, you know, for us here in Australia in the Southern Hemisphere, I've had to explain to some of the Americans and the Europeans as well that you obviously, when it comes to Christmas trees, there's pines, there's spruces, there's firs, and you've got them all growing around, and you may use any one of them for a Christmas tree, and they all have that reminiscent smell. In Australia, when it comes to a Christmas tree smell, pine is kind of the one that we always connect with the with that Christmas tree kind of aroma, because none of the conifers are native to here. So pine is the one that has a special place in Southerners' hearts as well.
That's funny. I never expected that. So I would say that fir is the Christmas tree.
Yeah. I think when I've talked to, especially the North Americans, it depends what's native to their area. They tend to find what's available for them to bring in and what they grow up with in that way. So but definitely a very, beautiful essential oil pine is. Maybe we should dive in and look a little bit at how we use it for the body first of all. How do you tend to use it?
Respiratory. As you know, I have poorly lungs, so I do love my respiratory oils. But so any kind of coughs and colds, I always worry things are going to go to my chest and turn to pneumonia, and it does have like a strong resistance against like pneumococcal infections, but also aches and pains in the limbs. So for massage. Although I've got my book that I wrote, I'll show you in a minute. In fact, so this book that I give away for free, incidentally, on the internet. So when I wrote everything like really big spacing so that I can write notes in. And I've got in here, I write things in and I forget what I've written. I put safety, moderate dermal irritant, don't use in the bath. And then I did once. That's why I put that in there. And it was not one of my best days.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was not a pleasant thing. So great in like massage, but not great in the bath. And of course, I say, but of course, maybe it's not the same down there. Here, pine is the smell of clean. It's all of our detergents smell here of either pine or lemon. Which is why there's so much pine oil made, and it goes to aromatherapy, but not like our aromatherapy. It goes to toilet cleaners and stuff like that. So there's that mental association of clean. So I treated somebody once who got OCD. They were worried about everything feeling clean all the time, and they were able to take that feeling with them. So and also water infections like cystitis and stuff like that as well, sort of genitourinary. I would use it for that. What about you?
Pretty much those were the three main things that I had. It was respiratory, it was aches and pains, so in massage, and it was cleaning. Again, I'm a big fan. I'm not a DIYer. I don't like to make my own cleaning products, but I like to just get a damp cloth, put some essential oils, and I'll rotate my essential oils and just wipe down benches. And I think pine is a beautiful one for that fresh smelling aroma. And whatever you're cleaning your home with, you're then bringing in the energy. And as we explore pine on those deeper levels, I think, when you need that kind of cleansing energy, it's going to be a really powerful one as well. I do want to ask about something. We've been talking about one poor chemical constituent in essential oils over the last few weeks. It's got a bit of a bagging, and that's 1,8 cineol or eucalyptol. And we've talked a lot about, it's not the best oil constituent to have in oils such as Ravensara, when we talked about that, for children. How does pine as a respiratory oil for children go? Is it a good one, or would you still be hesitant with it?
Let's just clarify then. We're saying that we're giving 1/8 in the old stick. What we're saying is it's so powerful, it's too powerful for kids. So actually we're lauding it. It's a tremendous thing. But again, I certainly in terms of inhaling it, lovely and safe. There's nothing in there that's going to be particularly difficult. It's got a high level of limonene. I think the GCMS I just looked at was 9.2% limonene, the oil that I was looking at. Well, in that kind of high levels, if you're going to make like a preparation for anyone actually, because it's got high levels of monoterpenes, you're going to want to make sure that you're using some kind of antioxidant, because that could easily turn into skin sensitizing. That will go off very quickly. But it wouldn't be my first choice for a child, especially, just as I've said, it's a moderate dermal irritant based on my hard skin that's been using it. It's like bloody rhino skin, my skin. So a little baby skin I would worry about. But if you are putting it in a diffuser in the living room because everyone's got coughs and colds, lovely. I wouldn't have any problems with that at all. Yeah.
And when you're using it in massage, especially, it's it is attributed to having a bit of an anti-inflammatory power to it. You dilute a really high dilution for pine because it can irritate the skin.
3%. It's not too, it's average really. If you were going to go like somebody who was in a weakened state, so for example, somebody who's got rheumatism, an elderly person, then you'd go like 2%. And you could use it on a child, but quite often there's always like this idea of you should not use it for. But I think a better way to think of it is, well, is that the best use like oil for? Is it the best oil for kids with respiratory problems? No, frankincense is. So that's the end of that conversation. Do you know what I mean? Rather than thinking about what harm could it do, well, frankincense is better. End off. Yeah.
And I must admit, although I've kind of thought of pine as being great for like massaging into an area that might be a bit tight, the idea of getting a full body massage just with pine, I'd kind of feel a little bit, I don't know, that might, for me,
toilet clean it.
like you just wash it. Yeah.
But you probably wouldn't, would you? You would use it as a synergy with other things. And it does blend beautifully. I mean, if you think about, for example, if I were doing somebody with aches and pains, because my mother always used it actually, because it's idle and I've never thought of anything better, I'd go lavender and juniper. Lavender, juniper, pine, beautiful.
Yeah, definitely.
It is detoxifying, so it's very good to get the limbs. But as you say, I think you really, more than what are the properties of this oil, what are the associations somebody's going to make? And I do think they would think, oh God, toilet cleaner, if you were just lying there massaging them in that. Yeah,
very much so. Yeah, I think this is going to be a good one, from a practical level, also just for diffusion as well, because we talked about alpha pinene, beta pinene, the limonene and that type of thing in it. On the weekend, I helped launch a new blend by doTERRA, and it's based on the forest air. And so for those that haven't dived in,
that sounds lovely. Tell me.
So this blend was actually not made for its aroma, although it smells really good. What they've found, the Japanese actually found that we know that when we spend time in the forest, we feel better. And so the Japanese, obviously we know the Japanese worked very hard. They're trying to how do we help to reduce stress? And it was kind of scientists had the commission, well, do we actually feel better? Are there positive results of being in the forest? And they found that yes, people when they spend time in nature, doing what's called Shinrin Yoku, or forest bathing, things like their cortisol levels go down, their stress levels go down, their creativity comes up, they sleep better, their natural killer cells for anti-cancer cells increase in the bloodstream, all these different types of things. So they found that yes, there is definitely a benefit to being in the forest. And then they're like, well, why? And they realize that when we're walking through the forest, the trees are releasing something that they call phytonicides. And this is when I was kind of reading and learning about it. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. What these phytonicides are. And then they start listing things like alpha pinene, beta pinene, camphene, D-limonene, all these different things. And basically then the research goes on to go, well, if you can't be in the forest, diffuse forest essential oils. So although we might not think of pine being directly great for helping with sleep or directly helping with, optimum, cellular reproduction or prevention of cancer and all those different types of things, when we're diffusing pine, we're bringing the forest air into our homes, and you're probably going to receive large amounts of, health benefits on the physical level as well as the mental level.
Yeah, I agree. And I was reading through all of the different things that people had said about the emotional aspects of pine. So if I remember rightly, and I'll have to try and put person to person because I wasn't planning to do this, but Valerie Woolwood talks about how it stops people feeling afraid to make a mistake. So, for example, and I did think of it like in terms of somebody who's got one of the main reasons people have imposter syndrome. I think there's like 5 different sort of sets of people. And one of those are perfectionists, because they've got incredibly high levels of like benchmarks that they set themselves. And anything lower than that benchmark feels like a failure. And so this idea of walking through the forest and going, but you could give it a go, couldn't you? You could let that go, and Gabriel Mojay talks about how it's a metal element plant, and how it tonifies chi and tonifies Po. And he talks about how if Po is low, you have these feelings of apathy, but also low levels of self-confidence. Again, this idea that you're walking into this kind of arena that goes, have some, And of course, we talked before about how metal is clear thinking, and like the natural defenses of the body, whether that be the immune system, but also our mental defenses. And so when you think about it from that point of view of like this fog of phytoncides that you walk into, or you can create that fog, it's really incredible, really, isn't it? It's far bigger than the scientific like piece of evidence. It's an enormous idea, really.
Yeah, and so it's really exciting being able to bring the forest. Ideally, we'd all love to spend 4 hours walking through the forest each day, but that's not a reality based on our time or where we live in a city kind of thing. But the exciting thing is that this blend that we launched is designed to match the content of the forest air. So it is basically has same chemistry as forest air as well. And diffusing pine is going to be another great way to do that in our own homes, which is really, really exciting. Really interesting what you're saying there also about the focus in the mind as well. When we look at a pine tree, from the macro level, we look at, they normally kind of grow as a point up to the heavens, but they're needles compared to pretty much most of the other trees. They're really pointy. They're probably, and I know it will range from species to species, but there's one of the words that really comes to mind for me is direct. Pine is very directive, like let's cleanse it out. And it's interesting how often we start to run stories, whether it be, oh, I've made a mistake, oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I'm guilty of something. And I feel pine is a really great one for kind of almost going, really? Are you really thinking that? Let's clean that away. Let's start thinking a little bit smarter and being a bit more direct with our thoughts.
Yeah, I love that. So on my link tree this week, I've put a link to a meditation I've done in the past with pine oil. And I did it right at the beginning of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. And it talks a lot about the Russian beliefs about pine. And it's one of their main shamanic tools. So they've got like a pine forest, and it's called shaman forest. And they talk about, one of the things they talk about is how straight a pine grows. But when it's like gnarly, because it sometimes does that, It's because of the geo-electromagnetic field around it, and it's almost as if negative energy makes it, that way. And so they've got this particular forest that's full of gnarly trees, and they say, this is not a good place, and you go into that place with caution and with reverence. But otherwise, everything that they use pine for magically is about deflecting negative energy from oneself and to protect outwardly from negative energy. And I do think that when you're smelling it, you can kind of feel it dissipating through your aura, of just like it disappearing away. The worries, just it's fresh air in your lungs, isn't it? It's what you say to a kid: go out and have some fresh air, you'll feel better. Because you do, don't you? You can feel it cleansing the lungs. You can feel the new breath coming in. And
I guess when we look at it, if we think it helps with respiratory and pain, when we breathe out, we let go of all the emotional yuck kind of thing, and pain, when we can let that go, that frees us. It's very cleansing. It's cleansing to the mind. And it has been used throughout history, pine needles, pine essential oil, and so on, for cleansing energetically as well. So really one of the, I think what it does is it clears away that fog, as you're kind of alluding to before, and then allows, when the fog is gone, I can see clearly now.
Also, the other thing is that pine trees know about negativity themselves, so it's scientifically proven that if they're grown in a place that is contaminated, like from construction contamination, they change their chemistry.
Wow.
So the chemistry alters. If I was any good at my job, I'd remember what it was. But anyway, if you want to look it up, it's in Battaglia. And but what it says is, if the chemistry goes high alpha pinene, high beta pinene, then actually the antimicrobial properties of it drop out. So you would expect that to be high, but it says no. If the beta pinene comes up, then that alters it. So it is one of those oils that it's worth knowing really well where you got it from, where it was grown, but also really looking at the GCMS and saying, right, okay, let's understand what happened to this tree to bring it to this point, because if it's been very stressed or absorbed a lot of negativity, maybe it's not as cleansing as it would be. It's almost like it's exhausted itself trying to cleanse itself. Yeah.
And pine trees seem to have quite a long history of being used in different things as well. I know it's often associated with, if you want to connect with your ancestors, pine can help with that. Nature divas, it can help with that. I think it's actually a good one for working with Archangel Raphael. And what I find really interesting about Archangel Raphael is everyone knows he's the healing angel. But Raphael is also the guardian of the element of air, which is the mental realm. So how is Raphael helping with healing the physical body, but also to do with the mind? But a lot of what we're starting to learn is the mind and the body are interconnected. And I think Raphael can, again, help us to bring that link together. And I had breakfast with a friend today, and she was telling me, we're saying the most frustrating thing about ill health is not knowing what's actually wrong with you. Like she's having a few kind of health issues at the moment. I'm like, I can solve any that's a grand statement, but I've got an oil for everything if I know what it is. But if someone's just feeling lethargic and gaining weight, there's lots of different, and the naturopath and the doctor can't find out what it is. I'm shooting arrows in the dark as well, kind of thing. And I think pine's a really good one for, again, cleansing out and helping us maybe to bring in Raphael to help us understand, if I knew what the answer was, what would it be?
Well, really, and also this air element, that's the metal element that we were talking about, wasn't it? You're talking about spirits. So if I remember rightly, the pine has its own spirit called a Lethe, according to Russian folklore. And a Lethe has a neutral disposition towards humans, and that it will be good to you as long as you're good to the earth, as long as you're good to the forest. So specifically, if I remember rightly, it was the forest that it was interested in. But when they're talking about the plant itself, it said that pine is the most inviting towards humans, in that it's one of the easiest plants to work with shamanically, as long as you can approach it with an open heart and that you are ordinarily good to the earth. Then pine will speak to you. Otherwise it will go, no thanks, I'm not interested. But particularly it's very interested in conflict and settling conflict. So I think the name of the video that I did is called the Spiritual Warrior, and it's very good for kind of looking at conflict from the point of view of how are we going to resolve it. Like, so I will put my not very nice head on again, because it always comes out in these videos, but like me, I'm going to be like, I know what I'm going to say to you because I'm going to point score. You know, I want to have the last word, and I will say the most spiteful thing. But Pine goes, really? Really? Is that what you're going to do? Because you could, like, it's like, what's the name of the Chinese man? Sun Tzu, with his Art of War, you know, that's more Pine, that goes, you know, strategically think this through. You don't necessarily have to win every battle to win the war. You know, let's see if we can do it in a different way. And Pine's all about that kind of stuff. So it's very good if you're in a situation where you are battling and you're not getting anywhere, because really it's just getting to a point where you just point scoring. I can remember I used it when I was looking to buy this house. I was really point scoring with the people I was buying off. And when I started to use Pine, I started to think, but actually you'd be better to acknowledge that nice thing that they did for you, and to be a bit gentler that way. And actually it did move the stalemate, because they were more reciprocal to what I was saying. Yeah.
Interesting. Obviously different oils have different emotional feelings about them, and you know, there's some we could think of, you know, what rose does to us, or what ylang ylang does for us, or you know many different oils. How much emotion do you think is in pine?
I think it's more mental than emotion.
Yeah, I'd actually say it's almost emotionless, not in a cold way, but in a fair way. It's almost like that ideal judge who is impartial.
Yeah, a bit like Sagittarius. Yeah.
Like, so I think it would be a really good oil for, you know, our emotions. Emotions are a beautiful thing, and they color our lives, and we definitely don't want to quell them. But there are some times where maybe there's too much of the emotions, and I think pine is the kind of the solution to go, well, let's bring a little bit of objectivity back into it.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Just as you're speaking of, I was trying to connect with what kind of emotion does pine evoke, and I get nothing. Not in a negative way, but in a empowered way.
Yeah, I would really urge people, if you wanted to take this a bit further, to have a listen to that meditation, because it took weeks to write, I have to say, because loads of research went into it. But there's loads of stuff about like Russian beliefs and Ukrainian beliefs, and interesting within them being in the conflict about how they viewed the pine would work with conflict, and actually that goes across into Native American medicine. They say the same thing, that it's believed to be about how to resolve conflict between tribes. Yeah.
Now, pine being such widespread, I did find that there were a lot of different deities that were associated with pine in one way or another. But one that stood out to me, bit of one of my favorite, Dionysus, or Bacchus, as the Romans called him, particularly for the fertility aspect, that pine helps to bring a more fertile life as well, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, but also, of course, he is the god of irrational. You know,
that is interesting, actually. His celebrations where everyone got being the god of wine as well.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, if you thought about like Dionysus or Bacchus, that part of, he's all emotion, isn't he? Whereas his brother Apollo is all thought. So yes, I can see rulership, but I'd almost be like antidote to that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, true. That's a really interesting point. The other thing as I was preparing for Pine today, I'm like, right, we need to have a chat about this. talking about the chakras, and obviously there are the different glands in the body that are associated with the chakras, and pretty much the top five, the bottom five, everyone's pretty much on parallel with. But then we get to the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. And a lot of people talk about the pituitary gland being associated with the crown chakra. Now, my opinion, and just my humble opinion, the pituitary is to do with the third eye chakra, and the pineal gland is to do with the crown chakra. And when we even look at the roles, the third eye chakra is very much to do with the integration of the intellect and the intuition to interpret the world around us and work out what do we do with our lives. Normally, based on the information that comes through the pineal gland or the crown chakra, of like, this is my spiritual mission. Now, how do I actually apply it into the real world? Does that make sense? Am I making
it? Does make sense.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
And the pineal gland, really, its core things are more our circadian cycles and how much in tune we are with the universe. So even if we look at the chakra and the gland, third eye and pituitary pair nicely, and pineal and crown pair really nicely as well. Thoughts on that?
Thoughts are, you should have prepared me for this question.
Sorry. Oh, and I should say as well.
So actually, let's just go back. Let's see if I can answer it from a different perspective then. So you talk about Dionysus, and Dionysus had a staff called a threus. And the top of the threus was a pine cone dripping of honey. And
yes.
This is why we say that the pineal gland is kind of Bacchus related, Dionysus related, because it kind of has the appearance of the pine cone. When we think about the pituitary gland, it is the foreman of the body, but fundamentally, if you think about it in terms of stress, it stands at the middle of the HPA axis, which is stress response. So hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you perceive fear, the amygdala or amygdala perceives the fear, sends information to the hypothalamus, who says, tell the pituitary, we've got to tell the adrenals to secrete some stress hormones. So all of that has definitely got to be related to the third eye, because that's about, I am perceiving what's going on around me. And likewise, the pituitary gland is actually, it could be really thought to be every chakra, because it controls levels of hormones that come from every chakra. So if the pituitary goes out of kilter, then everything else goes out of kilter, doesn't it? You know, for example, it'll tell the body less estrogen. Well, then less estrogen is no longer about crown or third eye. See what I mean? But I would say it is third eye. Yes, I would say pituitary is third eye. Did I answer that?
So then I think so. We actually are agreeing with each other, and probably the one missing link, and people might be going, well, why did he bring this up? Pineal gland was named after the pine cone because of its shape. And so my argument for today is that pine would be a crown chakra essential oil with that link to the pineal gland. That's the case I'm putting forward.
I think I'm going to disagree with that. Cool. I think I'm going to say that it is pineal third eye because of its effect on thought rather than what it's receiving. But I do like your thinking.
I was even thinking, when we think about the soul, which is, you know, the immortal part of ourselves, the unchanging observer or aspect of ourselves, emotions ebb and flow as well. And pine, we've just kind of, you know, does the soul have emotions? That's a bit. Where am I? It's meant to be talking about essential oils. Now I'm talking about the meaning of life.
No, I think maybe the spirit has emotion, but the soul is infinite and level. I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, one thing I learned, I remember spending some time at the New York School of Philosophy, and they said anything that changes is not you. the soul is the unchanging. They call it the unchanging observer. That, you know, a great meditation that I love that we did is we just come, close our eyes, relax, focus on our breath, and now go, just focus on your body. How's your body feeling today? So on. Then say, focus on your thoughts. Don't try and stop them. Just watch them dance around and that kind of thing. Now, how you're feeling, you know, what emotions, are you stressed, you know, all that kind of thing. And then they go, what's been watching those three things? What's been watching how your body is, your thoughts are, and your emotions are? Because if something's watching that, and they'd refer to that as the unchanging observer, and that there is a part of us, and that's, they were kind of arguing that's our soul, is the part that never changes. It doesn't change emotion. It just quietly sits there and watches. And so to work out who we truly are, it is a bit of us that never changes throughout our whole lifetime. And I found that
So
really
I think
insightful.
I might just give up then, trying not to be a rat bag, because that's my soul. And I'm more than happy with it, to be honest. Yep. That's me. I'm opting out of any kind of work now. But I do like that, and that idea of what's watching. That's kind of a bit of a mind.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And when to link it back to essential oils, because that's what this podcast is about. You know, pine, we said, almost has that emotionless about it. It's just that objective observer, and I think that's when pine steps beautifully into our lives, when we need to, okay, let's get the irrationality, let's get the emotion, let's just calm down, and let's just clear out the muck and get really direct on what we're doing, what we're here to do, and what the purpose is.
But also, it's kind of motivating to do it, because it does clear out apathy. So, like, if you're not careful, it makes it sound like, well, it's just, well, let's just do it, and it's like emotionless. But definitely, it's kind of that feeling of like, okay, I'm ready to do this, you know, as well.
Yeah. Well, I guess if we believe, and there's different belief systems, but we're all here for a purpose, whether that's to fulfill whatever that may be. A lot of the time we're not fulfilling our purpose because of all the confusion and the mist and the delusionment. And it's kind of that one that goes, okay, let's clear all that out. And now I'm inspired to do what I'm here to do. If we're here to do a job, let's do it. So I think it's a really, although it may not seem like it may not be celebrated as one of the most spiritual oils, I think in some ways it's a really powerful tool in our spiritual adventures.
Yeah, it's not really a sacred oil as such, is it? But also it's like, mind, I'm talking from my perspective. As I look out, I can see thick pine forest. So I was going to say that it's very available to people, but maybe it's not. Maybe not that, you know, for me it is, but perhaps it's not. One thing I wanted to say that is totally unrelated, and I didn't want to forget, is I think that pine is one of these oils that we have to be careful with diffusing around cats.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've got a feeling, because it's kind of got a lot of limonene, they might struggle to metabolize it in their liver. So if you have got a diffuser on, just be careful about the cat, because I think that they can't actually break down the constituent parts. So even if a piece, like a droplet, falls onto their fur, it's as if it's undiluted. Then they lick it, and it's as if they've had it neat, for want of a better word. So I'm not sure, but I think that's one of the oils that you have to be careful with cats.
Okay. Yep. Cool. That's good to definitely note. Okay. So I'm going to put pine in the crown chakra realm. Where are you going to put pine?
I think I don't really want to say pineal, but yeah, I do. The reason why I'm hesitating is because, to me, it's important medicine is the lungs, but you can't really say it's heart medicine after what we've just said. But so I am going to say pineal.
Yeah, it could function and could be a really nice addition to maybe a throat chakra blend, because the lungs, the respiratory system, the throat chakra, being able to be a bit more direct with our communication and clear out, you know, there's some people that will fluff around and won't be able to get to the point, and pine or will hide behind words. Pine could be beautiful in that, but yeah, crown would definitely be my one there. Astrologically, where would you put pine?
I think I'm going to say Sagittarius, like I said earlier.
Fair enough. And that's Jupiter?
Yes. No, I'm going to say Mercury.
Okay.
Yes.
Got you.
I'm going to say Mercury from the communication point of view, but also the way that Mercury can go between the worlds. So it can go to the gods, but down into the underworld. And I think it's got that kind of element of we can talk to other worlds if we want to.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Obviously, a lot of the planet associations are with the closer planets from Mercury, Venus, Mars, the Moon, Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn, because that's all that was available in the naked eye. And so poor old Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they don't have as many associations with them. And that came to my attention a few years ago. And I was like, right, what oils and what plants are sacred to those three later generational planets that were discovered? And one of the ones that stood out to me with Neptune was actually Neptune has a connection to pine. So I've always I don't know whether it's that cleansiness. I don't know. It's interesting because Neptune does have that mist and that kind of very euphoric thing. Pine, for some reason, I keep going back to Neptune. I don't know if it's an ancient connection to it or what it is, but I keep on going, I'm going to give this one to Neptune.
I think almost you're picking up the opposite to what I'm picking up, because where you said Bacchus and Dionysus, those ideas of dreams, delusions, visions, that's almost opposite to how I'm feeling the oil works. And that's twice you've done that now. So,
True.
So it's interesting whether that it's almost, sometimes you do tune into oils differently, don't you? I pick up what I need, you pick up what you need. And it's almost like we're reading the opposite sides of the plant.
And talking about Neptune, Neptune is actually going retrograde on the 1st of July, so on this coming weekend. And so the Neptune retrograde is a little bit different to the others. So when Neptune's direct, or when its influence is kind of showering down on Earth, we wear rose-colored glasses. Neptune's all about, he's the higher octave of Venus, so he's all about inspiration and beauty and the arts and photography. And, it's that feeling when we hear a song that we just love, or we see a movie that moves us. That's very Neptunian. And so what happens when Neptune goes retrograde, it's when a planet goes retrograde, imagine that they're a parent that goes on holidays and leaves you at home by yourself. So what happens is Neptune takes off those rose-colored glasses. So from July 1st, it's reality check. We start to see things as they truly are. We start to go, oh, I've been putting a lot more into this relationship than they have. I've been letting someone get away with something for way too long, or I've been doing something that I thought wasn't that bad, but now I'm starting to realize that it actually has a really detrimental effect. And it can be a bit of a harsh reality check, but at the same time, it allows us to come back to what do we truly want in life? And a lot of the time we make excuses and settle for subpar. And so it's a really great opportunity when a Neptune goes retrograde to kind of fall in love with reality rather than fall in love with the delusion that Neptune brings. And pine could be a really nice one for us to be working with in the next few weeks to get a little bit clearer on where have I been glossing over things or avoiding things or not dealing with things or settling for things. And again, let's take the emotion out of it and be a bit, because I guess the higher yearning of Neptune is for us to create a heavenly state, our ideal vision for the world. And we can't do that if we kid ourselves. And maybe pine could work really well with a bit of a reality check so that we can actually create that true beauty in our lives.
Yeah, and also, when you're walking through a forest, you are aware of what is actually beautiful. That you can see concretely around you, right? Because the other thing is, it's very easy to go through life and not see those things, isn't it? You're so involved in like the peripheral of what's going on in your brain about work, about what you're going to make for tea, getting the washing done. You don't notice all of those things, but there is a reality, a constant all around you. And as you say, when Neptune goes retrograde, you kind of lose that inner world a bit, and you're able to see what's around a bit better.
Yeah, definitely. So it could be. It was. There's no accident in this podcast of. We choose oils for certain times, and I think we chose a really good one for what's happening on the weekend.
Yes, very good. So I think it's your turn to choose, isn't it?
It is my turn to choose. Before I choose, is there anything you want to shamelessly self-promote this week?
Well, yes, I want to say some thank yous actually first. I want to say thank you to all of you, all the strangers who turned up on mine and Helen's workshop last week, people that we didn't know. It was so nice to meet you all. So we had a really good time. And I'm having a bit of a break from workshops for a bit. So I've got a bit more time on my hands. And so I was going to say to people, if any of you are interested in kind of mentorship work, where you wanted some support learning about particular oil or how to work with oils in a certain way, I've got several people I work with. For instance, I've got a lady who is she's coming to the end of her diploma and she's doing work in a hospital, but because she's always worked in a medical practice before, and she's always had like a proper mentor with somebody being under somebody's arm, she's felt a bit like, oh, I'm a bit out there doing her own therapy. So I work with her. I've got another lady who is just looking at spiritual work and working through. So I've put a link on my link tree. If anybody fancies doing that kind of work, there's a link to find out how you would like to do it. I'd love some new people right now.
I remember in both our, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on one of the podcast things, in all the descriptions, both myself and Liz's link trees are there, and that's our menu of everything we offer. So check them out if you haven't already. I just thought I'd give everyone a friendly reminder. If you enjoy hearing about the emotional and the spiritual aspects and the myths of the stories that we share in these episodes, the book that I wrote with my friend Vanessa Jean, Gifts of Essential Oils, it is available throughout the world. We have people that sell it in North America, in Europe, and if you can't get it if you're not in one of those regions, you can order it from my website in Australia, and we ship anywhere around the world. It's gone to the Middle East, it's gone to Asia, it's gone to South America, New Zealand, wherever kind of thing. So you'll find the link for that on my link tree as well. It's got over 100 essential oils diving into, it's not going to talk about belly aches and headaches and that kind of thing. It's going to talk about emotional aspects, spiritual aspects, and really get to know those oils on that deeper level. So if you haven't got a copy, and the book is, I didn't design it, but I will say the design is very, very beautiful. It brings you back in touch with the plants that gifted us the essential oils. So check that out. And yeah, I'm going to plug that. Right.
Yeah, I know I'm biased, but I love that book, I have to say. It's so refreshing to read something different about the oils, and as you quite rightly say, it's stunningly beautiful, although it's very heavy, I will say that.
It is, yes. We had challenges when we were writing it. The hard thing was trying to decide when to stop putting oils in. So yeah, and we've released a second edition because we had to squeeze 25 more oils and some more crystal information in there too. So yes. Okay, so my choice to decide, well, I was kind of looking at all the different ones. We've done some very unusual ones. We've, dived into some Australian ones like pineapple, myrtle, and kunzia. We've done some common ones like frankincense. I'm like, maybe it's time we did the Swiss Army knife, the 101 of aromatherapy. So next week, we're going to dive into lavender, but I'm going to put a bit of an extra challenge out to you as well, Liz. Let's see if we can show people new ways to appreciate lavender.
No pressure there then. Just when I thought I was going to have an easy week after I've spent 6 months on it, I thought, well, that's it. Now he's put a new dimension. I love that. Yes.
Yes. Because I think people think of sleep, they maybe think of skin, different issues, but lavender, I think it has so many different things that it can be used for. So if you're like, oh, good old lavender, that will be a dull week. Our goal, mine and Liz's, is to kind of go, oh, I didn't realize that lavender opens up that domain. Maybe it be for the body, for the heart, the head, or the soul. But that's what we'll try and do for you next week. How's that sound?
Yes, but only if you bring some crystals to the show.
I can do that for you with lavender. I was about to say which crystal I'd bring. I'll save that till next week. We can do that next week for sure. Thank you very much for joining us on Fellowship of Essential Oils. We will see you next week. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of Mother Earth, who gives us these amazing essential oils. Till next week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye, everybody.